Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brad Owens. I'm the husband of Carrie Owens, and if you don't know Carrie Owens, you may be in the wrong conference. This is my wife, Carrie. I'm glad that you are here today. I do not have the clicker. A little bit about myself before I get into the presentation on marketing. Let's see. I've been involved with marketing in one aspect or another for over 20 years. I was born and raised in North Carolina. Carrie was born, actually not born, but when I met her, she lived in Oregon. We met in Chicago. We moved to Austria, back to North Carolina, and then to Oregon where we live now. I haven't always been in marketing as far as my current position, which is primarily in radio. I was also a financial advisor for a few years. So I was asking people to give me their money. And I also was a donor development guy for the blood services side of the American Red Cross. So I was asking people to give me their blood. How many blood donors do we have, by the way? Thank you. Thank you for that. So that's a little bit about me. Right now I live in Oregon with Carrie. And as far as marketing, okay, I want to ask you a question if you've ever done one of these surveys. On a scale, have you ever been asked this question? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being never in a million years, and 10 being agree aggressively, how likely are you to? Have you ever been asked one of those in a survey or Survey Monkey? Then you're familiar with that. And what I want to introduce you to, you may have seen this, is the interest meter. This is our 1 to 10 scale that we're going to talk about in marketing today. Okay? The purpose of whatever marketing, and I'm going to start with some big picture stuff about marketing and kind of whittle it down a little bit, and I'm going to give you 2 specific things at the end of my presentation that you can take with you to capitalize on these last month and a half that we've got of really hardcore marketing, hardcore placement season. This is the interest meter. The goal of any marketing, for whatever it is that you're marketing, is to move people from wherever they are on that meter towards 10. You want to move someone who's a 5 to a 6 to a 7. When it comes to marketing, however, we are bombarded every single day with so much marketing. How many people get junk mail? How many people have pop-ups on their computer? How many people have been interrupted in dinner at night because someone's trying to contact you about their extended car warranty? Yeah, I mean, we are bombarded all the time with marketing, advertising. It's everywhere. So much so that the frontal lobe of our brain has developed I'm jumping ahead. I'll get to this guy in a minute. It's estimated that this year, $254 billion, billion with a B, is going to be spent in marketing and advertising just this year alone. In the upcoming Super Bowl, the next Super Bowl, it's estimated that a 30-second advertisement in the Super Bowl is going to cost $1.5 million to purchase an ad in the Super Bowl. Obviously, some of this works, but we're so bombarded with this that we have developed a mental bouncer in our brain that kicks out all the advertising and marketing that doesn't apply specifically to us. It's actually the frontal lobe of your brain. It's the logic processing center of our brain that has developed this bouncer to keep out all the unwanted, undesired marketing. One thing I do want to be sure to point out is that marketing and advertising are not necessarily the same things. Marketing is the big overarching process of presenting your brand or your image to the general public. Advertising is one of those tools. You know, you see an individual advertisement. Individual advertising is absolutely one of those tools. Marketing, it's the concept that builds what's called top-of-mind awareness. How many people have heard the term top-of-mind awareness before? It's not an uncommon thing. One of the things you may have experienced since you came to Vegas, now I was born and raised in North Carolina, where in the summertime the air is like soup. It's very humid. Since you've come to Vegas today, how many people are having any sinus issues? That's a joy, right? The other day I had to, my nose was running. I couldn't, what do you get to blow your nose? Yeah, Kleenex. Kleenex. My lips get really dry. I grab the stuff, the lip stuff. What's that called? Chapstick. And I went hiking with some kids a couple of weeks ago, back over Memorial Day, and I thought for some reason that I was a kid and climbed along the lava field, all those hard rocks, and fell, scraped up my leg pretty bad, and had to put what on it?
A Band-Aid.
Band-Aid. All of those three things, the Kleenex, the Band-Aid, the chapstick, those are actually individual brands of a product. Kleenex owns top-of-mind awareness to such a degree that we refer to the entire product line as that one brand, Kleenex. Band-Aid is exactly the same way. Adhesive bandages, everybody calls them Band-Aid. I don't know the last time I actually used chapstick, but I call whatever it is that I use chapstick because that brand owns top-of-mind awareness. How cool would it be whenever anyone brings up the topic of youth exchange, exchange students, cultural exchange, that they substituted those phrases with ICES. That ICES became the brand that was automatically in our top-of-mind awareness associated with cultural exchange. Well, we've got the tools to be able to do that. We just have to get there. Top-of-mind awareness, you may already have that in your community. I don't know where to put that thing. You may already have that in your community. It's what makes the football coach or the school guidance counselor or the community leader, when that topic comes up, they say, oh, you want to talk to? Fill in your name. About hosting an exchange student. Nationally, yes, we want to own top-of-mind awareness. Locally, you can own it. Okay? You can absolutely own it. So at this point, I'm going to ask a question, and I was going to have somebody run around with the microphones, but that's okay. What are some of your favorite advertisements? Just generic. any favorite ads?
The class, the
M&M's. What's that?
Clydesdale horses, Budweiser.
Kroger's grocery store with the guy dancing.
Budweiser.
Oscar Mayer Wieners.
Budweiser.
Budweiser.
The Clydesdale.
What else?
Santa Claus drinks Coke.
All advertising has made an impact on you because you're yelling out the names right now. A couple that are my favorites right now, I'll tell you, and they use as much of the sensory experience as they can when they promote these things. One of them is for VRBO, the Airbnb competitor. Now, I'm an Airbnb guy, but this ad makes me really want to look into VRBO. They show the scene, the chessboard in front of the crackling fire, the empty chairs, the log cabin that it's in, and the announcer says, this is where the memory is going to be made, where the son beats the father for the first time at the game of chess. Then it pans to a different location, and he says, this is the volleyball court, where the kids are going to fall over each other laughing over the cousin's missed shot. And they paint scene after scene after scene, and it's a great campaign because that campaign pulls you in with our secret ninja. And I'll introduce our secret ninja in a few minutes. My next favorite spot, my next favorite ad that I want to talk about, I found it on the way here. I worked it into my presentation because it made such an impact. And I'll be honest, it'll be hard for me to talk through it without getting choked up. A dad is walking out of his garage, and you can tell from his face he's downcast, and he's sad, and he looks at the front of his car, crashed, mangled, destroyed. All the oil and transmission fluid coming out from under it. He looks at it, and he is very downcast. And you hear the music. It's a sad story he's telling. He says, "It happened so fast I couldn't avoid it. My heart was broken." I'm not even sure about the words of this ad. I saw it in an airport. And he walks around the edge of the car. He says, "There's nothing I could have done. The most valuable things in my life, all were in this automobile." He reaches for the door and he opens it. And there's a car seat in the back seat. And then you hear the haunting voice, "Daddy." And he's heartbroken. "Daddy." Pulls him, he turns around, and his daughter comes out of the garage. He turns back around and looks at his brand new Subaru Forester and states, "When it was time for us to buy a new car, I knew I was going to get a Subaru Forester because of," and then our bouncer goes to work for us, listing all of the logical things about the safety of the car, and logic and logic and logic. But the logic did not kick in until we were engaged in that ad, until the story took us where it wanted us to go, which was Subaru. So here's another marketing story that you may be familiar with. Howard Schultz had an idea for a wonderful product that he was going to provide our nation with. And he had this great idea that he was going to position this product where people received the product after a ship in his favorite book, which was Moby Dick. So he talked to his marketing people, and he's got this wonderful product. And he wanted people to have the concept of when they went to this place, that they were a part of something big, that they were transported, that they were moving. So he was going to name it after the ship in Moby Dick. And he told his marketing people this. And his marketing people said, "Nobody's going to want a steaming hot cup of Pequods." So they said, because the Pequod was the name of the ship in Moby Dick. So he said, "Well, what do you recommend?" So they thumb through the book, and they find the first mate in the book Moby Dick named Starbuck. And so then they decided to name the location where he would be providing lattes, cappuccinos, all of the drinks, unless they're doing a software update and you can't get them on the morning of the Grand Canyon trip. They named it Starbucks. And we would not have had access to it because no one in their right mind would have gone to get a steaming hot cup of Pequod. They would go to Starbucks. So marketing can either pull you along, or sometimes something as simple as a single word can undo that top of mind awareness. So what we want to do to get around and to get our logic bouncer on our side is to engage our secret ninja. The secret ninja that we have at ICES is emotional connection. Any marketing we do, from the biggest of the big and the nationalist of the national to the little individual things that you do on a day-to-day basis that interact with the public, we've got to engage our emotional ninja, our emotional connection to build, except for when he's got donuts and cranberry juice, to build that connection with the person and the groups that we are interacting with. The emotional connection in marketing is what makes you go, "Aww," like a puppy. Or it makes you laugh so hard you snort milk out your nose. Or makes you cry an ugly cry in the middle of an airport when you see a Subaru ad. That was sad. The emotional connection provides the why of hosting. The why of hosting. And at ICES, when we can draw that emotional connection into the individual potential host families and get them answering and asking the question why, that is, it pulls people closer to 10 on that interest meter. It moves them in the correct direction when the emotional connection exists. It's what turns junk mail into real mail. Now, ballpark guess, how much junk mail do you think you get in a week? Way too much. That is the right answer. Does your bouncer just toss them out without even processing it? I mean, the logic bouncer, you don't even need to look at the envelope. Now, what happens when you receive a personal, handwritten letter or envelope? That's like gold now. That's like solid gold. You pull it out, the skies part, the lights shine down. Oh, you got a handwritten letter. That's amazing. Now, what can transition some of that junk mail into an emotional connection with you individually or personally if you see someone's face that you know on it. Now, we all know and love John. As soon as we would get a Black Friday ad, don't know why he'd be promoting a Black Friday ad, but if we got a letter or a piece that looked like junk mail, but we saw John Christ's face on the front of it, we would tear that thing open because it had the emotional connection. I just want to point this out. Every potential host family isn't a 10 today, okay? We don't want to neglect the 3s, the 5s, and the 7s that we're seeking to move down the interest meter. But we're going to be needing, because we're going to be needing those people in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next year and a half. Those are the ones that as they move up in that interest meter, they'll move into the ripe fruit, so to speak, of becoming a host family, and that's when we'll need to act. But the goal is moving people in the correct direction, moving them towards 10, and that is the goal of any marketing that we conduct, is to move them closer to 10. Excellent marketing needs to be focused on, and for ICES, it's on what the host family can benefit from, okay? What they can receive from the hosting experience. The experience, not just for being a host family, but from the actual experience. The Want More campaign is something we put together the middle to end of last year. It was on Facebook, and it focused on the individual things that host families benefit from, the experience that they love about hosting. And it was a campaign that was designed specifically to point out, these are some of the things that if you become a host family, these are the kinds of connections that you will experience. Now, something I want to be sure to advise us against as we communicate, as we do any marketing, it is very easy to become self-focused. In any of our marketing or advertising, if we become more talking about ourselves, we're caging that emotional connection. Some of you were in Carrie's presentation yesterday where she shared the story of me going off on a business trip, and there was a host family that had their student arriving or leaving, and Carrie saw that and went, oh, and she had a conversation with that local coordinator, and then the local coordinator chased her, followed her, all the way past baggage claim, out the door. I need a home for this Norwegian student. I need a home for this Norwegian student. All the way out the door. And the entire conversation was about, I need. If you've seen What About Bob, you might remember the gimme, I need, until finally the guy caves in. We've got to be careful in a season of great need to still point out the benefit of hosting and not make it all about us. When that happens, we then become a me monster, and everything, our entire focus becomes what our needs are, rather than what the host family can receive and benefit from, and the experience that they have an opportunity to take part in. When I was with a financial brokerage firm, there was a term that we used that was, you'll get it in a second, but it's called commission breath. My income was commission-based, and it was, you're held to standards. How many people have been or are now in a job that's commission-oriented in some way? Your income is based on your productivity. So my illustration for this comes from the Stinking Rose. How many of you have ever been to the Stinking Rose? It's a restaurant in San Francisco. It is a very delicious restaurant in San Francisco. And if you can read the small print there, it is a garlic restaurant. Now, when I talk about commission breath, you can probably see where this is going. One of their best appetizers is sauteed garlic cloves in olive oil. Okay? They bring it out at the very beginning of your meal, along with delicious sourdough bread. You take it, it's nice and soft and smooth. You spread it over the sourdough and you eat it. It's delicious. Carrie and I ate that whole appetizer that was up there, and it was amazing. Fast forward 24 hours when we're leaving for the airport on the way home. And our friend who picks us up, driving to the airport in San Francisco, it's almost never warm in San Francisco, and it wasn't on this day. It was cloudy and overcast. He rolls his window down. We're like, something's wrong with him. He must be naturally, hot-blooded or something, because we're freezing. So he rolls his window down, and then we climb onto our double-prop Alaskan airplane, very small. Everybody was sitting like this. We were full. And we flew hours all the way to Gold Beach and to Oregon, where Carrie's mom from Gold Beach was going to be picking us up. She comes up, and I'm not kidding. This is not an exaggeration. 15 feet away, she goes, "Whoa, what have you been eating?" And like in the movies, our mind goes through this flashback. All the people we were close to and our friend driving us, and all those poor people on that airplane. When we go into any host family or potential host family conversation, and we turn the conversation all about us and our needs, when we do marketing that is all focused on us, it does the same thing as eating all of that garlic. It creates what I used to call commission breath. And it pushes people in the opposite direction on the interest meter. My encouragement as we interact with people is to avoid commission breath and being a me monster, and making it all about the host family, all about the student, all about that experience. Give them the visual of what that emotional connection can be like. So right now, we are at the season of finding all the 8s, 9s, and 10s that we possibly can, right? This is not seed sowing time, although there may be some of that. It's not pruning, or we are looking for the fruit. We are looking for the host families, okay? So I'm going to give you some tools that you can use, and this wasn't by design, by the way, but there are other sessions where you can get very, very specific tools. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't visited the marketing table in the back yet, please go back there and look at the marketing materials that we have available. The first thing I want to tell you as the tool you can use, and I see so much of it here, is take ICES with you wherever you go. We speak the language of cultural exchange, and it's great that everybody has t-shirts, and that's a huge plus. When we go out into the community, the business community, the grocery store, taking those window clings, wearing your t-shirt. My advice would be wear your ICES t-shirt more frequently in your rotation in this season than normal, and absolutely wear your t-shirts, sweatshirts, window clings, anything that I see some water bottles with ICES, take that with you and be prepared when you see the sideways glance and the questioning look to engage that individual. Now, engaging the individual. ICES has amazing stories. This was not by design, but the best marketing, the best advertising that we have in the exchange industry is due primarily to the fact we have excellent stories to tell. We've got great stories. And when we don't tell the stories of ICES, then all of the student experiences are not being utilized to introduce exchange students to host families. This was not my plan. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's been a common theme through every single presentation that's been given at this conference. From every possible topic, every person has mentioned telling a story. Telling the ICES story. When we do that, that emotional connection, Ninja engages and creates that emotional connection, and even that bouncer who evidently had skipped leg day, he kicks people, kicks all the subconscious filters out the door, and that emotional connection takes place. Now, telling a story is not as simple as just, oh, I've got tons of stories to tell. You just need to let me have, tell my story however I want to. First of all, if you are a brand new local coordinator and you are wondering, well, I don't really have a story yet. How many of you were at lunch yesterday? You have a story now. Those students that sat up there and shared with you some of their experiences, you cannot pay enough for marketing like those stories can create when you share that story with a potential host family. The ability to tell a story is amazing in the interpersonal communication level of marketing. And I highly encourage you to adopt a story if you need one. If you already have a story or a lot of stories, tell them. Don't hesitate to engage your emotional connection ninja. Now, this is my encouragement. You got to whittle that bad boy down. I've heard some of your stories. And if you can't tell your story to a brand new cold potential host family lead in the time it takes you to get from the mezzanine to the top level of Planet Hollywood in the elevator, then you need to whittle that down. At the end of your orientation, we always encourage students with the fact that when they go home, the story they're going to want to tell is this big. They've got this much stuff to tell. And the people that they're telling the stories to may only have an attention span or an interest level that is this big. And if you try to tell the entirety of all those great stories every time, then you're going to become the, oh no, here they come. There comes the exchange student person. Listen, hi, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. Here they come. You don't want to be that person. So whittle your story down. Have a beginning of, right now, think of one specific exchange student by name and what country they're from. Okay? Think of how you can keep that story about that experience very short. 1.5 minutes at the most. Then wrap that story up with I think you would make an excellent exchange dad, exchange mom, exchange family. And I think I may have a student that would fit in your family. Do you mind if I send you some profiles to look at? You've got to keep the story short, but it does need to be wrapped up. We're talking, don't forget, we're talking about the 8s, 9s, and 10s on the interest meter. These are people that have showed interest, that have asked a question, that you've led down that emotional highway as you've told the story, okay? So you want to get them then engaged. You want to get them all the way active. The way to do that is to ask. You just ask. You may not be a very verbal or a very outgoing, gregarious person. I'm not asking you, when you tell these stories, to change who you are. Make your story real, make it transparent and honest. Potential host families, most of them can smell fake a mile away. Okay? You don't want to communicate your story with a mouthful of commission breath, and you don't want to make it all about you. But when it comes to sharing ICES, we have great stories. And the marketing aspect of that, all of the logo and getting marketing out there and promotions in a variety of different areas are great. But if we drop the ball at the local individual level, then all the marketing in the world is only going to take us so far. So hone in on that story you want to use as your elevator story. And then time yourself on it. Tell it to a friend and say, I'm going to tell this to you. That practice. Don't hesitate to start a timer, let it run, and let it finish. Okay? Everybody needs an elevator story or an airport story that you can tell without having to go all the way to the parking lot to chase people down to tell it to them. Let's see. ICES has literally decades of great stories to tell, just waiting to be told. When we tell them, they can move a 3 to a 4, or a 4 to a 5, or a 9 or a 10 to a lifetime host family. Now, the value of a lifetime host family, is it worth a 1.5-minute story of your time? Absolutely. So have you thought of your student? If you've thought of the student whose story you want to tell, raise your hand. Okay. If you haven't thought of it, get to work on it. Okay? Questions? That's all I have. I appreciate your time. As far as marketing, if you have any questions, there is one more thing I wanted to point out. Do not forget to engage in wherever people are in the interest meter. And we have a lot of resources available at our blog, at our website, at our Facebook page, on Instagram. Yes, I see a hand back there.
I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Oh, no.
Candace.
No, you're fine.
So, let's say we have a 3-year family and our marketing strategy needs to be different because they've been hurt by a kid. How do you remarket that in a different, positive light?
How do you remarket a damaged host family? That's a great question. I think one of the keys to that is encouraging them with the fact that that's not the way it is every time. You said that there were a 3-year host family?
That's one of my examples. That
Right.
So let's, as an example, where am I going with my marketing material to keep them on board of seeing how wonderful this is when they've had 2 great years? They're saying they're hurt.
Well, my guess is they've got their own stories about those 2 previous years. Remind people when they go through hard times like that in situations, and just a side note, all the great marketing in the world won't do any good if the individual interaction or the product we provide isn't top quality, and a damaged experience hurts that product. It really does. But the way to overcome that is to remind them that not all experiences in hosting are like that. The stories that they've experienced in the past, unfortunately, you may have to walk someone through a first-time experience that's difficult. But Carrie and I have both walked families through who have a hard first experience, and they say, they can't all be like this. And they're right. The key is maintaining contact, walking through it with them, alongside them. And marketing is great, and telling stories are great, but in those circumstances, what they need is the personal hand-holding, walking through. Yes?
I have sort of a suggestion for that. Many times, kids, when they're here, if they have difficulties and with a host family, it may not be the host family's fault or the student's fault, just a bad match. But what I like to tell my families is, you did your best to make a good experience for that student, and they may not realize it now, but they will in the future. And think of what you made an influence in their life for the future. Right.
She said the student may not realize it now, but remind that family that that student in the future may realize, how good they had it and how good the experience actually was. That's a great point. We had it was really fun yesterday when I got to sit in and we talked about some different marketing ideas with one of the regions. I don't want to say that I have the market cornered on marketing ideas, neither does the marketing team here at ICES. We value all kinds of input, suggestions, but vet those through the marketing team so that many eyes give great counsel. And when we do that, we can all work together for a marketing plan, marketing imagery, sound, all of it, all the sensory experience to have a great marketing plan moving forward with ICES. Again, thank you for your time.